Yes, hello everyone and welcome to all our West Australian football fans to another edition of Around the WAFL, a slightly abbreviated version today because obviously we're focusing on the state game that took place last Sunday afternoon at Optus Stadium, and sadly for Western Australia, it was another day of heartbreak. South Australia just too good in the end. We'll talk about the game, some of the best players, your opinions on the WA team. There was a lot flooding in on the socials when we put up the final scores of that game on Sunday afternoon. We'll get into those during the show. And also, we'll give you a look ahead to another great tradition in WA football that's taking place in just a couple of weeks' time. Paul Persick alongside my talented co-host Ethan Roth. Rothy, my goodness, it was a tough afternoon to watch.
Yeah, Paul, wish I could be sitting here under different circumstances, but not to be. Credit where credit's due to the South Australians. They were brilliant, with some injuries, but their other players stepped up. And I guess we'll just have to wait another year for WA to get another shot at it.
And it'll be the 100th occasion that the two sides will meet in 2025. More heartbreak for West Australia, 63-point loss to South Australia. We'll go through some of the key players and some of the opinions from the state game this past Sunday right now.
Punt from 50, win. Little too into the game, win. Too cocky, almost a win. Risking it all for the glory, win. It's win-win at the WAFL. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
Yeah, South Australia just too good in the end, set up with a 6-1 first quarter and ultimately ended up winning 16-13, 109 to 5-16-46, Ethan. 6 goals to 1 in the first quarter. In a state game, you're rarely going to get beaten, and South Australia made the most of what was an excellent start. They just looked a lot more polished, and WA, they just seemed out of sorts right from the outset.
They did, and like we've said in many WAFL games this year, the start is key, no different in this matchup. And yeah, I mean, Milan Murdoch was probably the lone hand for WA, winning his second Simpson medal. He's staking his credentials for the next level once again.
He's second in 6 months, after winning the Simpson medal in the grand final. So his individual form has just continued to blossom.
It has, and just disappointing that I guess not other people sort of rallied around him enough. And Jez McLennan outstanding in the midfield, winning the respective
Foss Williams medal, back to back as well, having won it last year as well in the last state encounter, I should say. So Jess McLennan, he knows how to get it done on the big stage, and it's safe to say, I think we could look at this, we could say this quite easily, but I think the familiarity of South Australia really gave them that advantage, because they had that prior encounter against Victoria, and then they had to train for another state encounter. I'm not using this as an excuse for WA's subpar performance, but that familiarity, that continuity is so important in these games, and South Australia just made the better of it.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, it does raise the question: is there a way that the WA guys can come together sooner? It doesn't ruin their, I guess, WAFL commitments individually. But yeah, honestly, like I saw our squad. Talked about it last week. I thought this was close to the best squad available. So I don't think you can sort of pick have a go at the squad that was picked.
It was a good squad on paper when you look at it. I mean, look at the depth that they had. Look at the back line, Eardley and Jupp for West Australia. Angus Schumacher in the midfield. Also, Ollie Eastland was expected to dominate in the ruck, but didn't do so. Bryn Teakle, he had a couple of good patches in there, but when you're looking at the squad on paper prior to this game, WA might have fancied themselves a chance, and they were right to do so.
Yeah, they were. And, I mean, what can you do? They, as I said, credit to the South Australians. And, no Isaiah Winder. I think he had a little bit of a knee niggle, so he wasn't able to get out there.
He was a bit unlucky, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, which, you'd love to see it. But I know Cam Shepherd and the coaching staff sort of said in the lead-up that they weren't going to pick players who weren't 100% available, which is fair enough. So
form, fitness and character, as Jade Rawlings mentioned on the show.
Yeah, it's... I know there's a lot of discussion about, I guess, the coaching, what happens from this moment forward. But Jade Rawlings, he can't do no wrong, really.
Absolutely. Coach of Norwood, who are going on very strong, 6 from 6 in the Sandful, and coaching South Australia to their second straight victory over Western Australia, his second straight victory as state coach. Congratulations to him. On the other side of the coin, when we'll take a look at the best players in a moment, where does that leave the state team as far as the future is concerned? Just to basically sum it up, it leaves them in a bit of a quagmire, to be honest.
Yeah, I know the question. I personally think it could be time for a change, and that's nothing personal on Cam Shepherd, obviously two-time premiership coach at WAFL level, very good with his time to us. So nothing personal, but his record kind of speaks for itself in the sense. And I kind of wonder, like, when we used to win these state games, it was a coach who was actually a WAFL coach at the time. And you look at Jade Rawlings, he's a Sandford coach now. Is it a bit of a disadvantage being, just a coach for one game during a year, not coaching throughout the year? I know it's a big commitment and, it probably gives a good opportunity for the regular WAFL coaches to have a break during that week.
I think it is a disadvantage. I think it really is a big disadvantage because if you're coaching just for the one game, what sort of approach are you going to take? What are you going to bring, from your regular WAFL duties to your state duties as well? But also, if you have a current WAFL coach in there, players are going to be a lot more familiar. They'll be able to carry out the message far more effectively. It's nothing against Cam Shepherd. He's a great coach, got good credentials, dual premiership coach with Peel Thunder. But, if you're coaching for that just one game a year, one where the players from all 10 teams are combining together, you need to get a little bit more familiar, and maybe they could have gotten familiar with it a little bit sooner, as you said. Maybe, let's say, about 3 weeks prior rather than just a week prior.
Yeah, and you wonder how they address this. Like, are they really hard about this? Are they really, reviewing it? How passionate are the coaching group about actually winning this game and getting the best person available? I think there's plenty of coaches that could do it. You look at Bo Wardman. He's been around the setup for a while, a current WAFL coach. You look at Monaghan,
reigning premiership coach.
Current premiership coach. Even Ross McQueen, these guys are all there. Obviously, if they're willing to do it, that's another question in itself. But
listeners and viewers, we're going to get some of your opinions on that later on in the show. Of course, a little bit of waffle about with our fans and listeners and viewers who tune in every Tuesday and Thursday across the season. Where is it going to go in 2025 when the two states meet again, this time in Adelaide in 2025? This is our special state game review on Around the WAFL, your go-to WAFL podcast in 2024.
Introducing the WAFL Merch Shop, your ultimate destination for all things WAFL. From jerseys to scarves to caps, show your support for the WAFL in style. Grab exclusive merchandise now and gear up to cheer louder than ever before. Visit shop.wafl.com.au today and let your passion shine.
Now, despite the loss, Ethan, West Australia, there were some positives when you're looking at this game. Milan Murdoch, I wouldn't say very much the lone hand to an extent because there was one down back who played in patches his role quite well, and that's Jacob Blight. I mean, Jacob Blight, I think he was going to be that number one defender everyone was going to have a look at, not just those that went to the state game, but some of the AFL recruiters, because he's been touted top pick in the mid-season draft later this year. And when you're looking at his figures, 17 disposals and 13 marks, it really tells that he really played his role despite the ball being at his end of light and not in the best outcome.
Just over a week to go now until the mid-season draft. So the timing couldn't be any more key for Jacob Blight. And the intercept marking, I know he's put a mountain of work into, not just this game, but the season as a whole. So he's really raring to go. And that intercept marking is a key facet of his game.
I'd say he'd be number one. I'd say he'd be the number one draft pick in the mid-season draft. Question is, who's going to be touting for him? Is it going to be North Melbourne? Is it going to be Adelaide?
Richmond.
Is it going to be West Coast? Richmond? Who knows? It's going to be quite interesting to see which club is going to get his services.
Yeah, well, you mean key defenders don't grow on trees, do they?
No, they don't.
It's, an advantage that he has. And, he'll be sorely missed if that does happen. Obviously, fingers crossed for his point of view. I know Peel Thunder will be happy for him, but and the state team, but obviously, you can't fault them for I guess, conflicting views. But,
Well, Peel would desperately want to keep him. If he doesn't get selected, it'd be a good outcome for Peel Thunder.
It would be. So Cam Erdley, I guess, supported him a little bit down back as well, down in that 50. And another player that, I guess, played his part, especially in that third quarter, was Bailey Rogers. Coming back into the state team after a year off.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, had an injury prior to last year's state game, so it was very unlucky for him. But also, you're looking at his performance in midfield, 22 disposals, 5 marks. He really put in a good effort in that third quarter when an effort was desperately needed, because WA didn't put any in that first half. South Australia were just going through them like cheap suits. But Bailey Rogers, he really stepped up to the plate when it needed. 5 good marks and 22 disposals.
Yeah, and hopefully that can be, I guess, the stepping stone for some more state footy for him as well. I don't think he's done by any stretch of the imagination.
No, there's no way he's done it. He's got a few more good years left in him. I mean, look at the games that he has put in, especially in finals and in clutch games when the game has been put on the line. You look at Round 9 against Peel Thunder last year, round 13 also last year against South Fremantle, where he really came into the fold. So he's a clutch player at both levels. Unfortunately, with South Australia dominant all over, he never got the chance to do so. But another player that I thought was very, very good to an extent was Angus Schumacher from East Perth. Got plenty of the football. His running carry was good. It was just the backup in midfield that just wasn't there.
Reigning Simpson medalist before Milan. He's very experienced and would have been one of the guys leading that charge for the fight back. After that those first quarter blues, I guess you could say. So yeah, he can hold his head up high and can't fault the effort from him.
No doubt about it. That's some of Western Australia's best. Listeners, let us know who was West Australia's best last Sunday afternoon over at Optus Stadium. Let's now take a look at South Australia's best. And really, it was a tale of continuity for South Australia. Despite the number of new faces that were there, 13, 9 of them playing their first game for the Sandford State team, everyone put in. It was a complete team effort for South Australia, especially when you're looking at that first quarter start. As you pointed out, starts in these sort of games are completely critical. They made the most of it. One play in particular, the Foss Williams medalist Jess McLennan, 25 disposals and 8 marks. Efficiency aplenty for McLennan.
Yeah, you just wonder if, WA put enough time into him, off the back of last year. But
or any of the new faces.
Yeah, as you said, so many debutants, but you wouldn't have known with the way that they played, almost blooding that sort of youth and, pulling on the jumper for the first time. So, Aiden Grace tore it up forward, but really you couldn't go past McLennan, to be honest.
He was just incredible.
From the get-go, you can just see he's at that sort of next level. He really tore it up. And, Harrison Wigg, presence in the centre, I think that was a good supporting, that duo as well. And
that's the backup South Australia's midfield have that WA didn't have.
So you have your star power, but then you have those guys sort of around you. That continuity is the key. And has been for a while for the South Australians.
No doubt about it. Harrison Wigg, 27 disposals, 7 marks, but also brought the ball inside 50 on 7 occasions. So his supply to their forwards were absolutely terrific. And those forwards, Aiden Grace, you mentioned him, 4 goals from 10 disposals. And James Rowe, 3 from 19, including 7 marks. That forward structure absolutely worked to perfection. Jade Rawlings wanted to get the best out of those forwards, and he did.
Yeah, Jimmy Rowe's a very good player. I don't really know how he got delisted from Adelaide a couple of years ago.
I'd love to know.
He was sort of up to the level, and you can see that he's coming back to the Sandford. He's more than up to it. So, yeah, they were just brilliant throughout, as we said. Even, Luke Beacon, 24, contributed as well. Probably flew under the radar a bit. So, yeah, if one player, had a bit of a quiet patch, the other stood up, and that was probably the difference in the end. It was more of a team performance.
Exactly right. It was a team performance. Everyone contributed, and there was an even spread of goals. They were more polished in their disposal. They were a lot more polished with their pressure on the football, and they were just a little more desperate. That's really much it. And no doubt Joseph Sinor, his leadership was absolutely key in that start, especially when South Australia really got the ball rolling in that first quarter.
He's building a nice little resume for himself, isn't he? And I think they enjoyed playing on Optus Stadium as well.
Yeah, the bigger ground, the wider flanks, suited them very well.
Which I guess in the lead up, people probably said, that's going to suit WA a bit more with the bigger grounds sort of over here. But I guess it probably suited, South Australia about the same, or if not more. I know I tipped Casey Ross for the medal on the 14 touches, but I guess that speaks to the depth of this Sandford team.
Yeah.
If he doesn't step up, well, it's not like they're just going to lose the game.
But think about this. Casey only had the 14. Eamon Wilkinson only had 13. Billy Cootie only had 19. But there was an even spread. Everyone in that side got double figures in the disposal count. Every single one of them. So it goes to show that depth at both ends of the ground was absolutely tremendous. When you're looking at WA,
the midfielders obviously
the forward lines really struggled to deliver as well. When you look at contrasting score lines, okay, South Australia had 29 scoring shots. Their count had 21, and they missed 16 of them. But South Australia, they just had more pressure on the football, more conversion in front of goal, and they were able to put a very good winning score on the board and dominate the inside 50 count.
Accuracy is key. If you can't finish your work, then, you're doing yourself a disservice, aren't you? So, yeah, and their pressure, as you said, their pressure, the stats, really worked in their favour. So, when they didn't have the ball, they were tackling hard and they were, chasing and doing all the 1%ers.
And they certainly were, of course. And you look at their accuracy at disposal, 55.1% South Australia, 23.8 WA. Not a pleasant number.
Level of footy you're playing.
Absolutely. don't really put any time into
All the players know each other, and I think as well, like I've just thought like the year before too much. I don't know. All these are obviously, conversation pieces, but yeah, I mean, Cam Shepherd's role in 2025, I'm not sure where it leaves him. I think there has to be a certain element of pressure on him just because he hasn't won a state game.
Yeah, he hasn't won a state game in his time as coach, and while he's accomplished at WAFL level, WAFL level and state level are two completely different things. I think there needs to be a change. I think, I'm going to be blunt here, nothing against Cam Shepherd. Cam, I'm sorry, but I think Sunday might have been the beginning of the end.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm on the same page there. It's time for a change, I think. I just wonder, as I said
who's
earlier,
capable? Who's capable of taking that spot? The current WAFL coaches, who's the most capable of taking that spot?
I would say the three that we mentioned. So Monaghan, Wardman, who's been in the setup for a number of years, assistant coach,
and Ross McQueen.
I think those are the three front runners, but obviously they need to want to do it as well. But yeah, I just wonder, like when we lose this game, is Cam Shepherd addressing it, or are they just going, that's it, we're disappointing, we'll move on to next year, boys? Like, how are they actually addressing this?
Exactly. They need to have a more proactive approach on how they address it. Their approach currently is a little bit reactive. That's not the way to do it, especially against the South Australian side who completely towed WA up on Sunday.
Yeah, I just feel like we need someone who's, and I'm not saying Cam isn't this, but someone who's just a bit more no-nonsense, like we're here to win.
Exactly.
A bit more of a hardened approach, a bit more passion.
Passion, pride of place, because that's something that's needed so importantly in a state game like this.
I feel like I'm just getting the sense, and it might be a bit harsh, but they're just a bit happy to be there sort of thing.
That can't happen.
And it can't happen.
Cannot happen.
Especially in the 100th year.
Yeah, 100th year of this amazing rivalry between WA and South Australia. That satisfaction of just being happy to be there, of just making up the numbers, that can't happen. That has to stop. It has to stop right now. They've got to harden the you-know-what up and really find a way to increase the pride of place virtue that there is about state football. As a passionate devotee of state football, you are as well, and like many here in West Australia, there needs to be greater pride of place, and it needs to happen right now heading into 2025.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I don't think we can keep saying that, the WAFL is the best competition outside the AFL when we aren't winning these games. Now, that's not on anyone, personally or, individually, because it's a collective thing as a squad,
it is
coaching
a collective
staff,
thing, yes.
A state really. But yeah, as I said, just someone who's a bit more hard, especially, we're not going to be playing here till 2026 back at home. So, another year on the road, and that obviously, pens the question of, can we have it at a WAFL ground? I mean, you were there, Optus. What was the crowd like? What did you make of, I guess, the setup? And I know there's been a lot of frustration about, people not being able to get tickets to it unless they went to the AFL game afterwards. Yeah,
that's a bit of a challenge. The crowds really started to fill in around about the second half, which is, stating the obvious and all that. They, it's tough to express an opinion really about it because of the way it's set up. I mean, there was a lot of chatter about, maybe the game should have been played at a suburban ground where you could get actually a good atmosphere and a good crowd and maybe have it as a standalone game. I don't know if that will really work in the long term now with these string of results that WA has had, but it's not bad worth trying it.
And I guess another idea is there was the 18s and 21s game, which you called. Could there be like a double header at a ground like that where they make 2 games in a row once a year? Yeah, it's interesting. I think obviously the one thing is it's a chance to play Optus.
The opportunity to play on the big stage.
Guys who don't usually do that outside of AFL and also the grand final. But most of these guys have played there now. So like if we are picking a squad that is, played state football, and I know there's always going to be players coming through, but are you playing Optus just for maybe, the 3 or 4 players that might have not played there before? Are you really catering for, the whole fraternity, or are you catering for just 2 or 3 guys who haven't played Optus before just so they can play there? You got to weigh it up and do what's best for the state as a whole, as a majority.
And that goes back to, a couple of these players that didn't play maybe should have played as well. Some of them were a little bit unlucky. One more opinion from Simon Collins on our Around the WAFL Facebook page. We really appreciate it. Very important that everybody gets their opinion on it as well. They keep appointing someone whose coaching does not suit interstate football. They make it impossible for a home crowd to get right in behind the players regardless. They throw out the players they want to play at Perth Stadium mantra, knowing full well the way that they arrange it. So that's an interesting one there, Simon. We really appreciate it. And that goes back to how it's all set up. It has nothing to do with the personnel that set it up. I think it's just how it all goes in modern times. But I think, having said that, there needs to be a big change for 2026. But, South Australia do the same in 2025, have it at the Adelaide Oval as a curtain raise for the AFL.
Yeah, and, fingers crossed, in a year's time we'll be talking about a WA win, but that's obviously in a year's time, and a lot, will take place until then. So, yeah, it's a lot to, water to go under the bridge, that's for sure.
Absolutely. But, nothing to take away from South Australia. They're just on another level when you're looking at it. I mean, they were a spectacular team to watch. I mean, just watching them play, seeing the best from the SANFL is absolutely incredible. It might have been, WA getting beat, but, it was a way where South Australia were able to control the contest and play some effective football from go to woe.
Yeah, and they'll be really proud of their effort, and so they should be. Jay Rawlings done a fantastic job, and it just speaks volumes of how well the SANFL's doing, and I guess their depth. Anyone can come in, pull on that jumper, and really do their part.
The other problem is, I'm going to get 12 months of more nightmares from John Casey.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to hear the end of it from that bloke. I still can't believe it.
To you.
Oh, my God.
And there's not, what can you really say back, can you? 'Cause,
No.
He's got the upper hand on you.
3-0. Now, I've covered the interstate games for 3 years now. I called with John in 2022. And, my golly,
Might be a long year for you, Paul.
Oh, it's another long year. 3-0 he's got. I'm being clean swept like the England cricket team from 06-07. It is absolutely embarrassing. John, if you're watching, please be kind. Just please. I've had more nightmares this year. Please don't give me another.
We've given credit for the South Australians, so hopefully that eases the pain for you.
But in all seriousness, love working with John Casey, El Supremo of South Australia, of course. Big win for South Australia by 63 points at Optus Stadium on Sunday.
Punt from 50, win. Little too into the game, win. Too cocky, almost a win. Risking it all for the glory, win. It's win-win at the Waffle. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
Now, before we wrap things up, Ethan, of course, we want to send a shout out to WAFL fans ahead of this massive weekend. One of the great traditions in WA football. The active WA Day round, of course, round 9 from June 1 to June 3. It includes, of course, Ethan, not only the 2 traditional derbies, but a trip to Northam on a Sunday afternoon.
Yes, we covered on that a couple of weeks ago, and it's exciting stuff, isn't it? Northam, great place of WA, and some of the best names to come out of footy, really. So we were a brilliant game there, and showcase for all the Northern people to watch.
No doubt about it. That's at Henry Street Oval in Northam on Sunday, June the 2nd. Perth taking on the West Coast Eagles, and some great talent being produced over there from Northam, especially one of my personal favourites, Neon Leon.
Leon Davis, yes.
Oh.
He's a freak, really, on the field. But
he can kick goals from anywhere.
He can do it at back, can do it forward. So he's just one of a number of players who've brilliantly come out of Northam. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. And it really sets up a brilliant, I guess, weekend of waffle footy right across Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, especially Monday, of course, the 2 derbies. What about it? Fremantle Derby, and of course the Perth Derby this year, returning to Fremantle Oval and of course Pentanet Stadium in Joondalup. South Fremantle taking on East Fremantle June 3rd at 1:10, and then 2:30 on that Monday, West Perth taking on East Perth, expecting a big crowd.
Yeah, both of them. I think they'll be very highly anticipated games with all 4 teams doing really well at the moment. So I reckon you couldn't really ask for anything better.
No doubt about it. All 4 teams. Imagine if all 4 teams are in the 5 come the Monday of WA Day, the active WA Day, and you get big crowds at Fremantle Oval at Pentanet Stadium, you're guaranteed one hell of a public holiday of footy.
Oh, you are, and fingers crossed the weather will be good as it has been of late.
I just hope it's better than what we had 12 months ago. Remember that freak storm over at the Wacker? I was there with the 7 guys, and it delayed the game for 30 minutes. Same thing happened at Sullivan Logistics Stadium, lightning in the 10Ks within the ground.
Yeah, I dare say it probably won't be like that, and I really hope it's not because, it was... derby's always great, and this round, it's not going to be any exception.
It's all thanks to the great folks at Active for backing this amazing round of football. Active WA Day, round 9 coming your way at the start of June. Well, that does it for today's edition of Around the Waffle, special state game edition. But I'll tell you, Ethan, the waffle action resumes this weekend, and what a massive round it's going to be.
Round 9, continues. all 5 games. So, as we say every week, everything's on the line. The stakes are huge, and the ladder's really starting to take shape. So we'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday, Ethan. Listeners, we'll see you on Thursday as well to preview a massive round 8 here on Around the WAFL. We'll see you then.